بسرعة راح يبدي التسجيل. راح أسجل.
Okay. Yes, please. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh and very good afternoon. Under the auspices of the Dean of the College of Education for Women, Professor Ishaq Al-Aggam, and the supervision of the Head of Department, Associate Prof. Dr. Maha Kahtan, we take a great pleasure in welcoming all of you of the first virtual seminar on cultural innovations in literature, linguistics, and translation. Dear colleagues and friends, the relationship between culture, language, translation cannot be overemphasized. Culture shows itself, as you know, in everything: language, literature, performing arts, verbal and non-verbal behavior of people. And as you know, we not only represent, but also embody our respective cultures. And what is accepted in one culture might not be accepted in other cultures. And that shows the necessity is to be familiarized with other culture. And because of the importance of such a topic, the Cultural Committee decided to choose this topic as, the first topic to be presented in this seminar. And in this seminar, we have actually 7 presenters. If I can read them, they are Associate Prof. Khalid Hamid, and Associate Prof. Inaz Ja'far, Associate Prof. Dr. Lina Laith, and Dr. Shada Naif, Instructor Isra Amir, and Instructor Inas Talib. Without further ado, let me start with the first presenter, who is me, of course. Okay. Sorry, just a minute. Something happened here. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Now, my topic is bearing witness in, do you see it or not? Sorry.
ما طالعة الصورة دكتورة.
Okay. Now.
It is loaded.
Okay. It's
okay. Thank you so much. My topic or my presentation will be about Bearing Witness, Ishtar in Baghdad by Rasha Fadel. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Rasha Fadel is award-winning short story writer, novelist, playwright, and journalist. Among her works are On the Brink of the Body, 2012, where she got a Dubai award, and a collection of short stories entitled Dreams as Butterflies. She was born in Basra in 1975, where she spent her childhood, attended college, and she has a bachelor in English language from College of Arts. She lived for a time in Tikrit and currently resides in Lebanon. Her plays have been staged in Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, and Oman, and Ishtar in Baghdad, in particular, was given a stage reading by a group of students in Australia. Just a minute, sorry, it seems that it's hanging like this, okay? Okay, this is Rasha. So, in an interview with Rasha Fadel, she explains why she has chosen to write about Abu Ghraib and why she has written this play in particular. She says that the event at Abu Ghraib certainly motivated me to write this play, in which I tried to come to terms with the magnitude of that violation against humanity. To do so, and this is very important, I have called up Ishtar and Tammuz to bear witness to what happened in Iraq and to the archetypal Iraqi citizen after the invasion, to bear witness to the transformation from one who used to be creative and protective, this is about Iraq and Iraqis, and who used to love and contribute to life, to one who is thwarted, frightened, and defeated. Ishtar and Tammuz, who are the main characters in Ishtar in Baghdad, witnessed the collapse of a presence built on the edifice of history. This collapse penetrates the Iraqi psyche, shifting from the present into that deep shared past. Okay. Now, so in a way, this play belongs to what is called nowadays is a theater of witness. Theater of witness is kind of theater almost started from the mid of 80s, but it is flourished in this century, 21st century. Theater of witness is a form of testimonial performance performed by people sharing their personal and collective stories of suffering, transformation, and peace. The work brings people together across divides of difference to bear witness to truth, healing, and reconciliation. Theater of Witness is developed by founder and artistic director Tia Spinning that gives voice to those who have been marginalized, okay, forgotten, or are invisible in society. Now, the main characters of this play is Ishtar and Tammuz. Who are Ishtar and Tammuz? Now, Ishtar in Sumerian source called Nana is a primary Mesopotamian goddess closely associated with love and war. And Tammuz is also associated with shepherds. Both of them are fertility gods, related, as I said, with love, war, fertility, with life, with the circle of life. Now, Ishtar in Baghdad. Ishtar, in this play, Ishtar and Tammuz were looking at Iraq, at Soma, from their celestial heavenly balcony. And they are seeing that there is the rising tide of blood engulfs the green earth. Tammuz says that the lambs even have died and the shepherds fled. What's going on in my country? They are so much horrified by what they are seeing. These gods, Ishtar and Tammuz, descend to earth in order to assist their children, the Iraqi people, and to restore fertility to the land. The moment they came to Iraq, both of them faces an explosion. And they have seen people how they are running, screaming, shouting, asking for help. And these red lines are from the play. The place is dark with ruins, and thick with the stench of smoke. There is an explosion. They fall to the ground. Heavy smoke covers the stage. Cries for help, screaming. People run in horror. There was a child who is crying, and there is voices everywhere asking for help. Allah help us. Where is the ambulance? Where is the police? The world. My friend is bleeding. Now, such images, we are seeing it, we are watching it after every explosion happened, and unfortunately is happening in Iraq. Now, Ishtar continues walking and wailing. Now, while she is walking, she has seen a child. A child was, screaming and shouting. Ishtar takes the bag from her and wipes away her tears. Ishtar says, "Who tore you bag?" The child cries bitterly and lifts the child face in her hand. I wipes her tears again, and child says that I was on my way to school. This scene, we see it. I was on my way to school. My friends were with me. We were studying for an exam. And suddenly, there was an explosion. Child cries harder. We didn't go to take that exam. We'll fail. Now, what that child is, busy or occupied his mind is that he will be failed in the exam. That his friends, he has lost his friends, his box, and there is fire and chaos everywhere, but he didn't care about that fire. He didn't care about that chaos. What is important for him is that he will fail in that exam, and that shows to us, gives us actually a kind of hope in the new generation that they will continue the message. They will continue the mission of knowledge. Now, in that explosion, also there was a wounded man, and he has seen Ishtar And Ishtar was looking for Tammuz because she has lost Tammuz within that, within that smoke. So when she is asking about Tammuz, that woman or that man who, the wounded man, says that Iraqi people either, either died or lost their minds. No, and she is asking, she comes across certain boys, and this is very important. When she comes to these boys, one of the boys turns to his friend. She is asking about Tammuz, of course, and one of the boys turns to his friend, and they explain or exclaim together, boys, Tammuz. Ishtar realizes how old the name sounds and asks again, where in Soma are we? Is this Soma? Boy says, Soma? Angrily, yes, Soma. Don't you know what the word means? Don't you know your own history from where you came? The boy turns to his friend for an answer, and he says, Soma, yeah, I remember, it's a cheap cigarette. Now, what the boy remembers from Soma, not his great history. What he remembers, it is that cheap cigarettes, Soma. And that makes Ishtar very angry, because it seems that people of Iraq or Iraqis do not know their history. And this is a kind of a criticism or lamenting the kind of situation that we went through Iraqis. Actually, Ishtar and Tammuz didn't descend when Mongols destroyed Iraq in the 13th century. As if the accumulation of all suffering that Iraqi went through is here in 2003. When the American invaded Iraq, the accumulation of all destroying, of all suffering, of all pain, it is at this moment in 2003. Now she is disappointed and continues to search for Tammuz, and she met a woman. And that woman was selling a kind of sweet or desserts or whatever. She was talking, that woman is out of her mind, and she is talking with Ishtar, saying to her, for 3 years I've been making desserts for him, hoping he will desire it. Maybe if he decides he wants it, then I will make him take me with him as a payment, but he hasn't come. Now, Ishtar says, who extinguished hope in you? Now, Ishtar sees Iraqi people without any hope at all. They are destroyed physically, destroyed psychologically. They don't have any hope in the future. And that astonished her, that disappointed her so much. It seems that woman has lost her child, and she says that if his bag had been burnt with him in that explosion, I wouldn't sacrifice my soul for him, but they brought him to me with the smell of his pencil, eraser, dictation, and his math notebook, where they didn't teach him that 2 minus 1 equals 0, because she is talking about herself. They were only two, she and her son. She said that they didn't teach him that 2 minus 1 not equals 1 but equals 0, because now she feels she is 0. She is nothing without her son. Anyhow, it seems that Tammuz has been captured by the officers and has been taken to the prison. And the officer is interrogating him, asking about his full name. And Tammuz said, Tammuz. He said, full name, Tammuz, where do you live? In heaven. Why did you come down to earth? This is our land. Aren't you going to leave anything for us? Heaven, earth, and oil? This is what the officer, and laughing. You have taken everything, Iraqis. You have taken heaven and earth and oil, everything for you. Look to your own birthplace. What is your mission here? To protect Ishtar on her way to immortality. Oh, she is your mistress. Is she also a suicide bomber? Then we discover later on that the soldiers and the place where the soldier have taken Tammuz was Abu Ghraib. That place is Abu Ghraib. In a big room, naked prisoners, officer addressing Tammuz. You will do as they do. Look at them. They become professionals. He whistles, and this is a very dark and painful image that Rasha Fadil poetically presents about the prisoners of Abu Ghraib and what has happened in that place, how prisoners bark like dogs, and the officers rose with lafa on one of them refuses. When one of them refuses, the officer approaches him and hits him with a sandpipton. Tammuz screams. And this image stresses a lot when the officer treats the other prisoners in a very bad way, the bad way that we have seen in reports that are presented at that time on TV. Then we have seen that also Ishtar has been captured by the officers, and she was put in a prison, and in that place where there are also women who are naked and were, tortured and raped. Officer, what have you been doing late at night? Ishtar is crying and speaks with difficulty. I was looking for Tammuz, whom I delivered to his death. Officer, what was your mission? To renew the gift of life to my people, my country, my sons and daughters who were cut down by your iron weapons. I am the goddess of their fertility, joy, and growth. I am a goddess of heaven. Officer, don't you worry about that. You will definitely send you back to heaven. Ishtars examined their faces. You are those who shed the blood of my people and extinguish the flame of life in them. Now, officer said, paranoid terrorists. Anyhow, the writer is taking us inside that prison. In one of the cells, we see the first woman is addressing the other women, saying that these monsters have been raped us. We cannot go out. I mean, we are not honest now. And one of the women too said, don't worry, I wrote a message on a tissue and sent it to my parents with Ahlam, who left in dishonor. I asked them to fire rocket and mortar shells on us as soon as possible. They prefer to die than to go out to face the society with their dishonor, because they have been raped. Their future have been raped. Their past have been raped by those invasion or by those officers. Now, this moment where Ishtar and Tammuz have been met inside the prison, take off the hood, officer, take off the hood. You remember that image that I has shown you when in Abu Ghraib they put a hood on the head of prisoners. They take off the hood. Tammuz's face is wet with tears and blood. Ishtar cries out and attempts to rush to him, but the officer stops her. Officer, not so fast. You cannot rejoin him until you confess the details of your operation. I told you this is not our land. Tammuz from the beginning is asking her not to go down because he feels that this place is not the Sumer that they know before. We came to the wrong address. Ishtar, true, this is not our land. Our dynasty is overthrown, conquered by those who are armed with death. We must die with our people to be faithful to them and to our noble civilization, which will be reborn after our death. This is what the prophecy says. Let us die, my beloved. Now, the play ends with this. Both of them, they prefer to die in hope that the circle of life will start again and the Iraqis will reborn again. Actually, it seems that Rasha Fadil thinks that there is no solution. She cannot find solution or earthly solution. Her solution is supposed to be heavenly solution. No one can save us from the disasters we have. She said, that's why she said, let us die now to share with the plants and animals their return to the womb of the earth, which perpetually creates life from death. Now, in conclusion, actually, what is unique about Ishtar in Baghdad is that Rasha Fadl introduces Mesopotamian deities into war-ravaged Baghdad as a characters who not only witness the destruction of the city and the assaults on its people, but themselves are arrested by American troops and tortured by them. This is how Rasha Fadl ends her play. In a hope, although she criticized Iraqi and Iraqis inside her play, but she has hope. And her hope, ironically speaking, her hope not comes from Iraq, not comes from people, not earthly hope. It is heavenly hope. And thank you so much for, I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you so much for your listening. Okay. Thanks a lot. The second presenter will be Associate Prof. Khalida Hamid. She is a PhD candidate at Al Mustansiriya University, and she is preparing a very interesting topic in her PhD about Al-Imam Ali Nahj al-Balagha. Wish her best of luck. And now the floor is for you, Professor or Associate Prof. Khalida Hamid.
Thank you, dear Maysoon and dear colleagues. Assalamu alaikum. In fact, I feel so pleased today to be with you, even virtually, to discuss a very important subject, which is culture. But before starting, I may ask you, first of all, let me present my presentation. Just a minute. You see it clearly? The urgency of culture?
Yes, yes.
Yes, thank you. This is the title of my presentation, The Urgency of Culture in Translation Studies. But before starting, I may ask you, what are the first ideas that spring to your mind when you hear the word translation? Is it speaking, writing, communication, or maybe linguistic transference from one language into another? None of these would be wrong. But in translation, there are many different aspects we need to pay attention to, such as culture and cultural differences in order to be able to convey the desired meaning. As you know, translation as a human activity may be as old as a human civilization itself. But it was used as a teaching tool of language, starting from the old Latin classes in European schools to the learning of English in present-day countries. Given this background, it does not surprise us that it was subsumed under applied linguistics. But shortly after, it began to be noticed that texts were constituted not primarily of language, but in fact of culture. And language itself is in effect a vehicle of culture. So the rapid development of translation as an intellectual discipline in 1972 has led to the development of new theories based on cultural rather than linguistic considerations. This expansion drew inspiration from different disciplines, such as communication theory, comparative literature and literary theories, anthropology, history, and most recently, gender studies and cultural studies. So in this presentation, I'm going to shed some light on the notion of culture and give a close examination of translation as being a cultural expression. This is the outline of my presentation. I'll start with an introduction. What is culture? Culture in translation studies, the cultural term, the effect of culture on translation, conclusion, and finally, the references. So, to start with, translation by default started so that there is no communication gap between nations and peoples in trade and cultural exchange. History tells us that translation played a part in the development of all cultures. Translators act as gateways within the boundaries that nations and people build up around themselves. They apprehend, understand, and negotiate three spheres: the source culture, the target culture, and the space between, which is the space of encounter. So, what is culture? Culture, according to Raymond Williams, who is one of the most important philosophers, in his important book, Keywords, A Vocabulary of Culture and Society, 1976, argues that culture is one of the 2 or 3 most complicated words in the English language as a whole, he means. In fact, translation scholars say that the other 2 most complicated words are translation and values. So what is culture? As you know, culture was originally connected with the study, with the discipline of anthropology. So those 2 persons are mostly cited scholars when dealing with the definition of culture. Whoever tries to pay attention to the term culture should go back to those 2 scholars, Goodenough, 1957, and Edward Taylor, 1958. Goodenough argues that culture is not a material phenomenon. It does not consist of things, people, behavior, or emotions. It is rather an organization, and this is the most important thing. It is an organization of all these things. It is the forms of things that people have in mind. They are models for perceiving, relating, and otherwise interpreting them. And this is, in fact, one of the core goals of translators, because the translators are trying to guess how people relate things, how they perceive them, and finally how they interpret them, so that their main concern is how to convey the intended meaning. As for Edward Taylor, he defines culture as that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, law, morals, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. In fact, originally, culture was simple. It referred exclusively to the humanist ideal of what was civilized in a developed society. At the beginning, it was used to refer to the education system, the art, the architecture, etc. Then, a second meaning, which is the way of life of a people, took a place alongside. In this stage, emphasis was very much on primitive cultures and trivial practices. But with the development of sociology and cultural studies, a third meaning has emerged, which is related to forces and power in sociology or ideology. So the term culture itself addresses the 3 salient categories of human activity. The first category is the personal one, by which we as individuals think and function as such. The second, the collective, whereby we function in a social context. And finally, the expressive one, whereby society expresses itself. What about culture in translation studies? Culture plays a very essential part in the translation studies. Translation scholars say that language and culture are intimately intertwined. Whenever there's a translation, there is also culture. Culture is not seen as an isolated phenomenon suspended in a vacuum, but as an integral part of culture. This is Snell Hornby, one of the most important translation scholars. As for Bassett Maguire, she says that language is the heart within the body of culture, and it is the interaction between the 2 that results in the continuation of life energy. In the same way that the surgeon operating on the heart cannot neglect the body that surrounds it, so the translator treats the text in isolation from the culture is at his or her peril. She concentrates on the importance of culture. As you know, translation has passed through different turns, different stages. The linguistic one, the technological one, by which we have the machine translation, for instance, the pragmatic turn, the semiotic turn. But in fact, one of the most important stages in the history of translation studies is the cultural turn, which was done by two translation scholars, Bassinet Maguire and Andre Lefebvre. They say that translation should not be mainly concerned with the linguistic transference. Rather, there should be a concentration on the cultural context as a whole. In the cultural term, there are certain things that they paid attention to, such as the abandoning of the linguistic approach as based on the concept of equivalence and moving from text to culture. The recognition that translation is primarily contextual, and as such, it cannot be explained through the mapping of linguistic correspondence between languages. Investigating translation through corpus studies, investigating the function of translation in the recipient situation. Here, the target culture and the target language, the target reader, has a prominent place in translation studies. I mean, in the cultural term. Finally, investigating what happens during the process of translation itself. Now, I'll give you certain examples to show the effect of culture on translation. I'll start with this Shakespearean sonnet. I think most of you know it, starting with, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate." As you see here, Shakespeare is praising his beloved as being as beautiful as a summer's day. Does it make sense to you as Arab listeners when I talk about the beauty of summer, especially you Iraqis? Do you consider summer as the symbol of beauty? So, ماذا لو شبهتك بيوم الصيف? At the end, لكن صيفك الأبدي لن يصيبه ذبول. Can you imagine the situation? Can you imagine the image of a beauty here? Is there a beauty when I say you are just like summer? In fact, different translation did not take the cultural aspect into consideration. As you know, summer in our culture is connected with being so hot, upsetting sometimes, right? It is the season in which things dry up faster and the heat is intense. So how come, and how to describe a beloved as being a Yom Saif? The other translation by Muhammad Anani also, ألا تشبهين صفاء النصيف بل أنت أحلى وأصفى سماء. من ذا يقارن حسنك المغري بصيف قد تجلى. All these translation has concentrated on the linguistic transference. They concentrated on how to convey the meaning from a linguistic point of view. They did not take the cultural aspect into consideration. جبر إبراهيم جبر also بيوم من أيام الصيف أشبهك. Is he praising her? In fact, if she is Iraqi, she won't agree. Other examples, for instance, here of لا يلدغ المؤمن من جحر مرتين. So it is translated by taking the target culture into consideration. A fox is not taken twice in the same snare. There's something missing. al-Khaba'ith, I can't translate it literally as the mother of all vice. It will be ridiculous. It won't make any sense. لقد ولى زمن العنتريات. The time of hunters fighting tactics is over. It is not adequate. The target reader won't get any meaning from this literal translation. خبر يثلج الصدر. News that freezes the heart. If I don't take the cultural aspect into consideration, translation will be funny sometimes. I have to think about the culture of the recipient language culture. these examples also explain the importance of taking the cultural context into consideration. Man proposes and God disposes. الرجل يقترح والإله يدبر. It doesn't make sense. But when I say العبد بالتفكير والرب بالتدبير, because I have it in my culture, so it will be, it will convey the adequate meaning brilliantly. These are other examples. I may draw your attention to about the 8th term, blue murder. In our culture, we don't say موت أزرق, موت أحمر. So all these things will be taken into consideration. These examples shows that culture plays an integral part in the process of translation itself. Finally, the new emphasis on the cultural context rather than the linguistic one helped to liberate translation from being a mechanical tool of analysis in linguistics. The words which proved untraceable are often described as being culture specific. Besides, not only words were taken as culture specific, but indeed the whole language became specific to the particular culture it belonged to. But the great obstacle in the way of translators is how to decide which issue should be dealt with first. Is it the cultural aspects of the source language, the cultural aspects of the target language, or integrating these two aspects together and move to a third space? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Associate Prof. Khalida.
Okay,
Such an interesting topic. Thank you.
thank you, Khalid. I know you left the questions to the end,
Yes.
but then we lose our interest or enthusiasm. But I should make a comment here on Khalid, on Khalid's lecture, because according to
I didn't get your voice clearly.
Prof.
shall I compare it to a summer's day?
Mhm.
Yes.
And you said the translation is not good because of the culture, because in Iraq, culture is, it torments us. But I think that the greatest translation was by Fatma Nava or something, because it's about translation.
The spirit of the text.
Yeah, the essence. And I've always imagined myself reading these lines. Let me read them, and I want to show that they are beautiful when translated to Arabic. من يقارن حسنك المغري بسيف قد تجلى، يا سيف قد تجلى. العبارة حلوة حتى لو الصيف قاسي، وفنون سحرك قد بدت في ناظري أسمى وأغلى. تجني الرياح العاتيات، تجني الرياح العاتيات جميلة على البراعم
وهي جلدة. Those are masters, the masters of translation, Dr. Maha, as you know. I know these are brilliant translations, but I'm talking about the cultural aspects in particular. About
because translation shouldn't be literal. You spoke about literal translation.
I'm not talking about the literal. Here, I'm trying to convey the effect of culture. Suppose that
continue to be beautiful when you قارن حسنك المغري بسيف قد تجلى.
دكتور مها دكتور إن شاء الله دكتور خالدة, we need another seminar to solve this issue. We need it later on. Yes, please.
I feel so thrilled. I feel so thrilled for having you discuss my presentation, Dr. Maha.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mason.
Thank you. The floor now is, thanks a lot. The floor now is to Associate Prof. Inas Jafar. Inas Jafar has MA in Modern American and English Literature, and her presentation will be about voicing, or the title is Voicing the Voiceless in Selected Plays by Yusuf Al-Jundi. The floor is for you, Ms. Inas Jafar, Associate Prof. Inas Jafar. Ms. Inas. Ms. Inas, are you listening? Seems that something wrong.
She's mute.
She's mute, I know, but she has muted herself. Ms. Inas, okay. It seems that there is something wrong with her internet connection. Miss Inaz?
Dr. Maysoon, I called
Yes.
Miss Inaz. There is something wrong.
Okay, let's move to.
Yes, I'm here
yeah.
now. I'm here now.
Okay.
I'm
Hello,
sorry,
Miss
there's
Inaz.
something wrong with my lab.
It happened. Yes.
I think, Miss
Okay.
Mason, it is better that you present somebody else until I manage the matters, please.
Okay.
If you don't
honey.
mind. Thank you very much.
That's okay. Associate Prof. Lina Laith, is she here?
Yes, I'm
Honey,
here.
are you here? Okay. Associate Prof. Dr. Lina Laith, she has a PhD in linguistics, and she got her PhD or degree in 2012. Her representation title is Father-Son Argumentation Across Generations. The floor is for you, Dr. Lina.
Yes, thank you very much. Is it clear, my window for you?
Yeah.
Go.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. First of all, Assalamu alaikum. Hello, my colleague. Today, I want to present a paper that I have already printed and published in Al-Adab journal. It is talking about the difference between the two images of father. And of course, the title is Father-Son Argumentation Across Generations. I have chosen two different novels in order to make a comparison. The first novel is East of Eden by John Steinbeck in 1952. And the second novel is The Road. It is 2006. So this difference in time will show us the difference between the type of father-son relationship reflected on language. As for me, those both novels, both of them has the theme of father-son relationship, but of course it is different. The old figure or old character of the father and this present, we can consider it as a present form of the father or image of the father. In East of Eden, the father is a very old officer, and he wants his son to be like him, and he start to face his son with so many orders, criticism, sometimes insults, so many things that will bother his son and make a long gap between them. As for The Road, the novel of The Road, the situation is different. There is no social distance between them. Both of them, they are acting like friends throughout the whole of the novel. And these two types of fathers, I want to examine them, of course, by language. And I'll start to analyze the text between them in terms of maneuvering strategies, in terms of the politeness theory and strategies, in order to check the audience demand, whether it is achieved or not. Let's start my abstract. Language has a valuable role in shaping the type of relationships between arguers. The use of language is like a double-edged sword in the hand of fathers to shape their type of relationship with their sons. Father-son argumentation could be the real source of increasing a social distance and building barriers between them. The current paper aims at answering the questions whether the social distance between father and son have changed between the past and the present, and have old fathers been changed to share their sons' common ground and wants. The great difference between the old and present father is examined in the two novels characterized by a father-son relationship theme, namely East of Aden, 1952 by John Steinbeck, and The Road, 2006 by Kerman McCarthy. The researcher aims at shedding light on the type of relationship between old and present fathers with their sons, reflecting on their argumentation, how they care about each other's face, and how much they achieve the audience demand in their argumentation by applying Penelope Brown and Stephen Levinson 1978 theory of politeness. It is found that present fathers have more positive choices in their argumentative politeness strategies, whereas old fathers go bald on record by their use of continuous orders, criticisms, and sometimes insult. Finally, it is concluded that the more audience demand is fulfilled, the less father-son social distance will take place. Now, I have a definition about the argumentation defined by Van Emeren and Krutendorst. Define the argumentation as a number of verbal, social, and rational activities that are performed for the purpose of convincing. So, argumentative discourse has three main dimensions. The first is the logic dimension, in which an argument is a product of the arguers in an argument activity. The second dimension is dialectic dimension, in which an argument is a process of cooperation between two interlocutors trying to settle a difference of opinion. The third one is the rhetoric dimension. That is what I'm after. The rhetoric dimension, in which the arguer try to persuade each other with the specific standpoint. The last two dimensions, the dialectic and the rhetoric, have been merged by Van Emeren and Hautlosser in all their publications and call them maneuvering strategies. And it is summarized in this triangle. All the three aspects of the maneuvering strategies are working together and cannot be dependent from each other. Van and Hautlosser summarizes the three aspects and their mutual relationship in the triangle shape like this: topical potential, audience demand, and the presentational devices. Now I have also another summary for the acts that are presented by Brown and Levinson. Of course, all of us have an idea about the politeness theory. Do the face-threatening act on record and off record, on record without redressive action, badly, or with redressive action. The redressive action includes positive politeness and negative politeness. By the way, I have some explanation about positive and negative. Negative politeness doesn't mean that it is impolite speech. No. Negative politeness means that the situation is somehow formal. The speaker is somehow independent from each other. They have no intimacy between each other. Positive politeness, no. They shows that how each, the hearer and the speaker, shares the background of each other, and they are talking as if were friends. They were from the same aspect or field of life, or they are from the same very near or close relationship. So positive politeness and negative politeness, both of them are polite, but the difference here in the type of the relationship between the speaker and the hearer. We have bald on record or badly. This means that it is very indirect, so that we can't be very direct, so that because I'm not in agreement with my speaker or listener. These are the things that we will depend on. And here is a very summary table for these strategies concerning positive politeness and these strategies of negative politeness. Then I have what? I have the result of my analysis. I have taken an extract from the two novels concerning the dialogue or conversation between the father and the son in both novels. And I have analyzed them in terms of those strategies, bold on record, negative, positive, and off record. If you can see that the road means the more recent novel, the father here is different completely in its statistical analysis from the father in the East of Aden, which is 1950s. Because it is the old image of a father, and the road is the more recent image of the father. If you can see bold on record, 27, and the son, 11%. In this case, means that the father is somehow very indirect with his son because he is very caring about his son's face. Whereas in father in East of Aden, 54% bold on record. It is more. And the son is 20. The negative, which is the formal form, is by the father of the road, 27, and the son, 9%. Whereas the father of East of Aden, 16, and it is response to or replied to by 53 by the son. In this case, we feel that the son is feeling very formal with his father. And in some cases, he called him yes, sir, instead of yes, papa or yes, father. As if there were a relationship between officer and a soldier, not a relationship between a father and his son. As for the positive, it is the highest degree by the father and the son of the road. It is the highest percentage, 58, and it is accidentally result as 58 the same. And if you can feel that the way the father choose his strategy to his son to speak, he will face him with another suitable strategies with response of within the same strategies. As for the East of Aden father, 24%, it's very little. As for the son, he has no positive strategies at all with his father because he didn't feel that he is from the same background with his father or they are somehow like friends. No, it is 0. The off record, yes, off record, it means that somehow near the impolite form of speaking, 4%, 2%. The father is 3%, and it is response by 26%. So there is something with his father that he can't cope with. Now we move to the conclusion. In terms of the statistical analysis, we can reach a conclusion that father-son argumentation reflects the social distance between them. We are the fathers and mothers, build the barriers between us and with our sons. Based on the above statistical analysis, it is proved that old image of the son, of the father, has been changed to fade away the social distance with his son, and the continuous use of bold on record strategy by the old father model increases the social distance. So as long as you are using certain strategies, you are doing what? You are increasing the social distance with his son. That is proved by his son's high frequency of using negative politeness as an attempt to be independent and off-record strategy, as an attempt to be indirect with his father. The use of positive politeness strategy by the present father model has a valuable impact on fading away the social distance with his son. The present father achieves the audience demand by caring about his son's face, fulfilling his wants, and letting him feel. They share the same common ground, fading away all types of social distance between them. That type of strategy makes his son reaction positive too. So the strategy the fathers use will get the reaction, the type of the reaction the sons do. So finally, to conclude, language is a gift in the hand of human beings. We can utter words act like bullet shots towards the hearer's heart, or like flowers fly to be planted with love in the hearer's heart. Thus,
You are definitely right, yes.
fathers gain their sons' hearts and obedience just by choosing the right politeness strategies in the argumentation with their sons. Thank you very much for listening, and
Thank you. Thank you so much for introducing such an important topic. The argumentation between, father and son will be continuous forever.
it is within our life.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Now the floor is, yes, thanks a lot, to Associate Prof. Inas Jafar. She has, as I said, a MA in modern literature and modern American and English literature. Her presentation will be about voicing a voiceless in selected plays by Yusuf Al-Jundi.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Thank you very much for this nice introduction. And I'm very sorry for this inconvenience, technical inconvenience. Now I'm going to present my topic. It is also talking about the differences of cultures, but in this time, such a difference is arousing tension, and it is arousing. Yes,
just
yes,
the screen, please.
I think Ms. Marwa is going to share it because there's some problem with mine. Dr. Marwa is going to join to show the screen. Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Marwa. Yeah, I'm going to continue. My subject is also on the difference of cultures, but such a difference that leads to a hazardous and tense interaction because of prejudice, arousing prejudice. I have chosen some plays by Yusuf Al-Jundi, an Arab American writer who is discussing in all of his plays all the predicaments and issues of Arab American and let's say Muslim Americans society, or let's say minority. Yes. As an introduction, ladies, I only want to emphasize the idea that Islam and Muslims have been always dealt with in a very hostile way. Not only nowadays, not only in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks, but also it started from the medieval ages. The moment the Western cultures tended to be in touch with the Eastern culture and the Muslims' culture. But after the attacks of 9/11, the struggle with this, or the reference to Islam in a very bad way, had been enhanced, and there were the camps, or people started to make two types of camps in the interpretation of whether the underlying basis of Al-Qaeda or ISIS organization was religious, or it has a religious basis. One of the camps was saying that Al-Qaeda and ISIS is the true face of Islam, while the other was giving some sympathy with Muslims, and they tried to be more moderate by saying that these organizations, terrorist organizations, were all only politically formulated discourses in order to show the West policy and its relation with the Middle East. But none of the camps tried to reconsider and understand the Muslims or Islam. In fact, this caused a great gap between the Eastern culture and the culture of the people who are living in the Eastern society. And that's why through the theater, many American writers tried to hold this responsibility of making some reaction by let's say, trying to interpret these presuppositions of Muslims as aggressive and violent. In fact, American Muslims, or let's say, the literary criticism of Arab American literature was so much denied and ignored before the attacks of September. But suddenly the writers, American writers, or Arab American writers, in fact, started to see that they were so much welcomed in the theater, and there was an arousing interest in their works. So they took this chance to make some solution to this predicament. Such writers as Betty Shami, Heather Raffo, Leila Buck, and Yusuf al-Jundi started to endeavor to present the real social and religious identity of those Arab American minority. As I said, in most of al-Jundi's plays, we see this attempt to show the reality of Arab American, let's say, citizens, and to what extent they are trodden under the pressures of the social and political institutions to show the Muslims as terrorists. And al-Jundi's most representative works of this mission, that he wanted to voice the voiceless, the hushed voices of the Arab Muslims, and the most representative works were Back of the Throat, which he produced in 2004, Language Rooms, which he published. In fact, it was presented earlier than this date, but it was published in 2010, and Jihad Jones and the Kalashnikov Babes. Yusuf al-Jundi, in voicing this predicament, he wanted to show as I said, the hushed voices. And he moved from the purely humanistic discussion of the Arab American Muslim, or the Arab American citizen and Muslim American citizen, then he moved to discuss the profound inner conflict of the Arab American who stands in between the original culture, his original culture flavored with his religion as Muslim, and the copy. The Arab American was standing in between. He is in a state of immediacy. And then Yusuf al-Jundi developed his attitude in voicing this issue to the multitude, to the writers on one side, and the multitude, the society itself. What is the role they must take to stand against this stereotyping? So starting with the Back of the Throat, Yusuf al-Jundi explored how the Arab Americans were violently transformed into the other. They were otherized by society, but in his presentation, he was showing only Khalid as purely human, a person who is very ordinary, whose name raises suspect in him, because his name is Khalid, starting with the sound which is never uttered properly by any other person but the Arabs. And he symbolically uses this simple word to show the inability of the Western culture to understand the reality about the human being who is Arab or who is Muslim. Yes, Dr. Maysoon. Is my voice clear, please?
Yes,
Ladies?
it's clear. Yes,
Yes,
it's
I can
clear.
hear. I
Yes.
can hear you as well.
Yeah. So, as I said, that Khalid is a very ordinary person, and he is suffering this tension and this predicament of being Arab, Muslim, and American only because of his name. And even he tries to distance himself from his own culture by saying, in fact, the Quran, which is in my room, is only a gift from my mother, because she thinks that she's going to protect, that these ayahs in Al-Quran are going to protect me from bad things. And even he says to the investigators that I am not really a committed Muslim. Okay, only my religion is Muslim. So he is talking with them in a very apologetic manner in order to declare himself from these accuses. But no matter how much he is giving apologies and giving, let's say, justifications, but he is again insisted by the interrogators that he is having some relations with terrorists. Dr. Marwa, please, the other, yeah. In language rooms, Al-Jundi moves here. He moves to discuss the issue in which the character, or in fact, the Arab American is standing in between. And there is some type of fragmentation of identity. In language room, he discusses the tension that an Arab American feels when he is obliged to be judged within this framework of, let's say, hybridity, assimilation, and fragmentation. And in the language rooms, we have the character Ahmed, and Ahmed is an interrogator in one of the language rooms in which the suspects for terrorism are interrogated and are questioned. And only because he feels some sympathy towards those suspects, he's going to be suspected, and his loyalty as an American is questioned by his bosses. And in this way, they ask him to question another prisoner. And this other prisoner is another Egyptian, of course. He is an Egyptian, and he proves to be his own father, who immigrated long time ago when Ahmed was still a child, and he did not know him at all. And when he questions him, the suspect, his bosses also suspect him, because he discovers that this is his father. And he reaches at the end to a conclusion that what matter he does, because he's very committed to the laws, committed to the obligations as an American citizen. He pays his debts, he pays his bills and the taxes, but all these matters were not taken into consideration. And he's always hailing that I love America. But no one listens to him, and he is going to be put in another room for questioning. And in that room, he is going to hush his own voice, because he is an embodiment of the American dream, that he came with all his aspirations, and these aspirations are hushed altogether only because he's an Arab, not even a Muslim. He's an Arab. and only because he sympathizes, which means that he does not want to give up his own identity as an Arab or Eastern or Muslim. So he is put in another room, and he's going to be also another suspect. In the third play, which is Jihad Jones, Dr. Marwa, please. Yes, in Jihad Jones, ladies, before starting with this play, I have to tell you that Jihad Jones and the Kalashnikov Babes is a text, is a script in origin. It is a script which has been mentioned in most of the writings of all these writers. I mean, the Arab American writers. This script was always refused by the characters, the actor characters in these plays. Why? Because this script was so much humiliating Muslims and humiliating the Arabic identity, and that's why most of the suffering that these characters, actor characters, go through in the works, in the dramatic works of Yusuf al-Jundi, Sam Yunus, and other writers. It is mentioned only to show. Yes.
Sorry, Ms. Inas, just remind me of the time, please.
Yes, I'm going to have only to take only 2-3 minutes, lady. So we go back to this Jihad Jones. It is a script which is mentioned in all of these works, and it is refused. Why it is refused? Because it so much humiliates Muslims and the Muslim identity and the Arabic identity, and that's why all the actor characters in these works were denying taking this role, although it is very it is a very good transformation for them as actors and financially, in fact. Ashraf in this play is always taking he is very talented, and he takes the role of Hamlet, and that's why the writer always emphasizes that to sell out or not, that is the question. To take the money for this role or not run away and preserve my identity and my spiritual aspect. In fact, his conflict is just like a Faustus tale of selling one soul to the devil. Who is the devil? The directors who want him to make or to take this role. The whole play is revolving around his questioning himself. Shall I do this or not? In fact, the question is not only for the director. The question is asked by Yusuf al-Jundi about stereotyping. Shall we continue in following these false representation of people, whether for Muslims, whether for the role of women or not? Shall we take a choice to resurrect and redirect these plays and literary works towards the other side, not of stereotyping, but towards a more prosperous issue in the society? Thank you very much, and I'm very sorry for the technical inconvenience and taking so much time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Inas, for giving a voice for voiceless in your paper. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Now the floor is to Dr. Shada Naif. Dr. Shada Naif got her PhD from University of Nottingham in 2016. Her research centers in politics, gender, discursive psychology, and sociolinguistics, with a specific focus on protection of power abuse and equality. Her paper will be a CDA approach to culture. The floor, where is Dr. Shada? Yes, the floor is for you.
I'm here.
Please.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you very much.
Just remind you of the time, please. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. I'll do my best. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my session. As the title suggests, I am presenting as a CDA approach to studying culture. In fact, this is an area that has been underemphasized in the study of discourse, and that's why hopefully by the end of this presentation, I'll be able to convince you that of the necessity of applying this approach in our future research, because to be honest, it provides new insights into studies of discourse, and I've located and exploded several research problems that can be really beneficial to the study, especially in the Iraqi context. First of all, do you see my screen, guys? Do you see my screen now?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
And my voice, I believe my voice is clear.
Oh,
Okay.
it just disappeared. Yeah, it disappeared right now.
Yeah, good.
Now it's okay.
Alhamdulillah. So, as I said, this is an area that has been underemphasized in research so far. And in fact, I started my early seed, I planted my early seed in my PhD thesis when I mixed CDA with narrative analysis. And because narrative analysis is something that is more located in social and psychological studies, and I brought it into CDA studies, in fact combined it with research with CDA studies in a way to further the interdisciplinarity of CDA. So in fact, we aim here at exposing and examining the ways in which cultural codes are embedded in discourse. And when we uncover these codes, we are then analyzing, we are making, the concept of culture clearly into the study of CDA, and because decoding them and is understanding them. So hopefully we deepen our understanding of the cultural CDA as a branch of CDA, and we seek to provide provide a practical toolbox for this discourse culture analysis. So first of all, we know that CDA is interested in the question of shedding lights on how discourse helps sustain social.
Dr. Shada, your slides are frozen. Is that okay for you?
Sorry?
Your slides are frozen. The screen is frozen. Your own screen.
Is
now,
it
now, yeah.
Because I was still talking. I haven't changed it yet. Anyway, so here we are interested in the connection between culture and discourse, and we will be decoding cultural cargoes implied in discourse, same as we decode ideologies in discourse, and I will show you how that contribute to the reproduction of point of views. By the way, I'll be providing interesting examples from the Iraqi culture that will, help me convince you of the necessity of applying this approach in our CDA studies. We know that CDA is concerned about, shedding lights of the way discourses help sustain inequalities, abuses of power, and domination patterns. So, coming to socio-cultural approaches, because culture is more about the cognition, because cognition mediates between society and discourse. And when we come to the cognition is composed of ideas, representations, values that individuals acquire from the environment. So it's here sometimes the environment itself is the culture, because culture is socially acquired, socially transmitted and acquired knowledge. When we come to knowledge, this brings us to Van Dijk's approach, socio-cognitive approach, and then we come to the key strategies that he focused, one of which is cultural knowledge. So when we come to CDA, we aim here to provide not only a theory, we provide empirical. We have empirical goals as to how we develop that tool into narrative, focusing on critical narrative analysis, and we describe the approach to illustrate the various ways in which cultural codes are embedded in discourse, and then we attempt to understand in a critical terms like culture, discursive strategy, cultural codes, and I'll explain what cultural codes mean through my example. So with cultural CDA, we aim not only to describe the properties of discourse, but we explain them. And recent approaches like the discourse historical approach, which focused on the intersexual interdiscursive strategies. Here comes CDA, critical CDA, which houses under the umbrella of cultural memory or cultural scripts. And if you see cultural scripts are green, you know why? Because scripts are about steps taken towards, that we take towards achieving an object, a social object, like for example, marriage, war, peace, and I'll be providing war and peace example here. So, for example, in Iraq, we have certain scripts for marriage. So like, for example, the suitor will not ask for her permission to marry except before marrying. Before asking her father's consent first. In another culture, the case is quite different because it's her choice first, and then whether the father consents or not, that's another question. And nowadays, I realize that men don't go to fathers asking for father's permission. They might go secretly to the girl herself and asking her for will she marry him before getting done by her father. So you see, sometimes it's funny, but it's logical. But here we trace how cultural traditions and scripts have changed through time. And then I'll bring you to the cultural, textual culture, what we see in the text itself. So with cultural scripts here, sometimes we've got characteristics of a given speech community. And the way we speak is a manifestation of that system of cultural rules that where we lived. And then this is an efficient tool for studying change and variation and continuity in social attitudes. And that's the example I gave you about marriage. So here, so here we could grasp the cultural logic underlying unfamiliar ways of speaking. That's, for example, the unfamiliar way of asking a woman for marriage, and then before getting done by the father. So cultural discourse analysis then here contributes to coexistence, how we coexist with each other in one culture, how we abide by the social norms, the cultural norms. It's impossible that a man takes a woman and goes and lives with her before asking her for marriage. So this is how we coexist together. So the term discursive strategies, in fact, is I believe that most of our researchers are a bit, not very familiar with the term, but I'll be trying to teach and explain what is called discursive strategies. With discursive strategies here, it's sometimes CDA, cultural CDA, exposes these discursive strategies because it enables the exclusion of a social object. Who is to exclude and who is to include? So by strategy, we mean the process by which ends related to means, marriage, proposal, you see? And then here we promote these social objects are promoted by certain goals. For example, political agendas, specific policies. So when we come with, I'll give you an example here. CDA, if we come to culture, in our culture, we know sometimes that a woman needs to, sometimes in some families, and this is the majority, women go and live in their in-laws' house. But in the in-laws' house, they are what? They are a minority. They are somehow less powerful when they have their own houses. So this example, and I'll tell you what is cultural codes inviting us here. Look, this is an ideal. This is an example from an ideal, and this is from real life situations. Husband who couldn't make it for his wife for dinner, so she said, "Hello, darling," calling her. "Hello, darling, I'm afraid we can't go out to dinner tonight." The wife whispering, "What? Are you kidding? I gave him my birthday cake for this." Of course, you might find this is very ideal because very few men in our culture will remember the birthday of their wives. So, but this is an ideal husband for me. So, but he loves because she kind of resists and whispering here because she didn't want, because she's not alone in the house. You see, this is how she resists, because with CDA we are talking about resistance, and this is an example that is specific to cultures where wives are sometimes forced to live in their in-laws. And then Okay, I'll buy you a birthday cake and make the dinner up to you on another date. She's upset. No, thank you. She hangs up. When he comes back home, he finds her upset and he gets upset, more upset. So you see here, go and make me tea. You see the order here? Impolite order. You see no politeness strategies applied here. Now? Yes, now. So she goes and makes the cup of tea, and then she puts it on the table and she moves. Look the way he calls her. Hey, you, back here. Go and fetch another teaspoon. Underline, I'm sorry, I haven't underlined my teaspoon here. So the teaspoon is very important here because it's a cultural code.
Sorry, Dr. Shada, I'm reminding you of
yes. I'll explain that example, Ali. Alex, because I need researchers here to
thank you.
Yes, but you've got one in your teacup. So there's already a teaspoon in his cup. And I say, I know that, but this is an upset spoon. And I prefer to replace it with a more cheerful, understanding, and forgiving spoon. Now, I believe that you understand what the spoon stands for. You know, bad ones should be replaced by good ones. Maybe 3 other spoons. Look here. 3 other spoons. Anyone from a different culture will ask, why 3? And why he refers to a teaspoon as an upset one. Why the teaspoon is not forgiving. You see, there is a kind of personalization of the spoon itself, because the context here gives the spoon emotions of forgiving, understanding, cheerfulness. You see, so the wife resists. And I said, anyone from a different culture will say, why 3 spoons? And here the answer comes from the wife. She rushes angrily to the kitchen, comes back with the 3 spoons, put them in his teacup, and then she says, congrats, you are now applying Sharia law. Enjoy your new 3 spoons. I don't care. And here we see how she resists. She can't rage because he's threatening her of getting married. And if you look here, anyone from will not understand what a teaspoon stands for unless they know something in our culture that people here some kind of they believe in myths. And 2 teaspoons in a cup of tea means another wife and a bad omen of another wife. So the way he threatens her indirectly, because she couldn't resist, and he provided another threat, and she couldn't rage, but she goes and she shows that her resistance is that she doesn't care. And of course, we all know that she cares. As I'm reminded of the time, I believe that this have explained everything for the time being. If any of our researchers needs help in this, or she needs applying this approach in her research.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please.
Thank you so much for teaching us a new discursive strategies in marriage. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now the floor is to an instructor, Isra Amr, and her topic, free interactive video tools. Isra Amr Mahmoud is instructor in our department, and she holds an MA in linguistics. She is interested in semiotics and pragmatics. Yes, Miss Isra Amr, please. Miss Isra. Yes. Miss Isra.
Can you hear me now, Miss?
Okay. Yeah, I'm hearing you, but the screen, yes, now it's okay.
Okay, now let me just cut to the chase. I'm talking about interactive video tools. I have 3 interactive video tools here. We have Edpuzzle, we have Kahoot, and finally we have Nearpod. Now the best one for Iraqi teachers, I think, in my experience, is Edpuzzle. You can just go there and pick videos from Crash Course, National Geographic, Khan Academy, YouTube, whatever, even videos made by other teachers. So for example, if I say present continuous, okay, so you got this one, you have videos. This looks like a great video, and we have a teacher who made this video. She added 80 questions, so the student would go there. You can check the question, you can edit the teacher's question. After doing so, this is a very okay, we have حقوق طباعة. We cannot use any video out there within YouTube, but by using Edpuzzle, we can use any video there. So she added the questions, multiple choice, open-end question, and even you can add attachment to those questions, and you simply assign it to your Google Classroom, and students will get that assignments on immediately within that within their classroom. Now, what do I get from that? You see here a grade book. Now you will see who finished the video, who saw the whole thing, who did the questions, how many questions did she get right, and that kind of stuff. And you will get a full report there for you with the names, with the percentage of views, and okay. And you can export that to your Google Classroom, and of course you can download it to your class. The great thing about assigning things to students is that you can, as you can see, you have a start date, hour, due date, everything will be set inside Google Classroom. You don't need to do anything within Google Classroom. Students don't have to do anything aside from clicking on that link, and they will be there and they will do their assignment, and that's it. Okay, so do I have other platforms? Yep. What is the other platform? Here we have Nearpod. Now, when it comes to Nearpod, okay, it's a great tool, and it works for with a lot of platforms, but the bad side is the fact that some features you need to pay money for that. And the worst part is the fact that creating presentations can be time consuming. We cannot afford time here. Now, when it comes to Kahoot, this is, for me, that was the worst one because it needs strong Wi-Fi connection. Number two, it actually makes students more competitive. That's that's the downside of Kahoot, which is a kind of a platform to turn your classes into games. Now I know we don't have time. Thank you so much for your listening, and the floor now.
Many thanks. And I want you to promise us that we need another presentation for teaching us these wonderful tools, please.
Oh, okay,
yes.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yes,
thank you.
Please. Thank you so much. Last but not least, Miss Inas Talib Saif. She